We think we are in control of our minds and can drive wherever we want, but if we think about it for a moment, we realize that we are only following a built-in navigation system that is beyond our understanding. We only see the display screen on top of a full, complicated system. Program work on much more advanced hardware. If we don't learn about this navigation system, how it works, where it's trying to take us, and how to go around it when it sends us the wrong way, we could wind up wandering around the world without a purpose and ending up in a boring or even dangerous place. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist from the 20th century, is probably one of the best and most talented minds who has ever tried to do this, to look at itself from the inside and make a full understanding of this kind of internal navigation system from the top down. Paul Jung, a poor rural preacher, and Emily Jung, a sad, strange, and spirit-seeing mother, had Jung in Keswell, Switzerland in 1875. Jung was a very shy and private child who spent most of his time alone, playing pretend, projecting, dissociating, and watching the grown-ups in his life. He hated school so much as a baby that he almost went crazy and fainted to get out of it. However, as he got older and more mature, and after his father expressed serious worry about his apparent shortcomings, Jung made a fairly drastic shift to focusing more on his studies. He began reading a lot on his own, notably philosophy and religious texts. After finishing high school, Jung decided not to follow his family's path of becoming a monk. Instead, he went to the University of Basel to study medicine. He graduated from the University of Zurich with a medical degree in 1902 and then worked at a psychiatric hospital with the famous and well-connected psychiatrist Eugene Bleuler. He would quit the hospital a few years later and start his own private practice. As Jung's fame and reputation grew in his area, he soon met Sigmund Freud, the most famous, groundbreaking, and controversial psychologist of the time. Freud still holds this position today. They would meet for the first time in 1907 and talk for about 13 hours straight. Before long, this would grow into a strong friendship and business relationship. They traveled the world together, taught each other, examined each other's dreams, and talked about different parts of their psychological studies and ideas. However, Freud, being of a far greater professional reputation at the time, as well as being much older than Jung, generated a dynamic in the connection that was much more like a father-son or teacher-pupil relationship. This would unfortunately generate issues when Jung's career grew and began to encroach on Freud's. The two would soon find themselves in disagreements over crucial parts of each other's theories. Ultimately, these disagreements Jung's tendency toward a somewhat mystical consideration of the human mind as opposed to Freud's more scientific reductionist approach. The nature of their father-son relationship and Jung's desire for professional independence all caused the two to split their friendship off in 1913. Following and as a consequence of this breakup, from around 1913 to 1918, Jung had a sort of midlife psychological breakdown. During this, he spent much of his time introspecting and writing about psychological experiments he conducted on himself, plunging into the caverns of his psyche. This period of change, independence, and psychological upheaval will eventually concretize his views on the mind and his career as an independent thinker of psychology. Put simply, the fundamental objective of Jung's career was to understand the nature of the psyche and then develop theories and methods to aid in the integration of all its components so to achieve a distinct, unified state of wholeness. In this sense, the psyche here simply refers to the complete personality of the individual, including feelings, thoughts, and behaviors, the mixing of the unconscious and conscious mind. The ongoing struggle of integrating the psyche through a process self-realization and becoming a maximum, authentic individual for Jung was the primary purpose of life and psychology understanding. Man's task, he added, is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. As far as we can discern, the sole objective of human being is to kindle a light in the darkness of plain being. For Jung, there is a constant interplay between the unconscious and conscious portions of the mind, which combine to produce our whole identity. Most of this, however, develops and exists in the unconscious realm beneath our immediate awareness and control. Thus, a large piece of who we really are, what we genuinely like and are capable of, and the reasons we do the things we do, persist within a universe we don't actively understand or have access to. And thus, in order to enter into a more real and complete state of being, the individual must endeavor to make this portion of the mind conscious by tapping into it and integrating it into the rest of their awareness. Jung would label this process individuation. In order to adequately grasp this, it is crucial to understand Jung's concept of the psyche, which he divided, starting with the bigger features, into consciousness, personal unconsciousness, and communal unconsciousness. Breaking each of these three realms down, consciousness is, as one would generally think of it, the domain of personal awareness where one connects explicitly and knowingly with themselves. At the root of this is another structure Jung observed, the ego. The ego is at the core of consciousness and offers a sense of personal distinction, establishing the fiction one tells themselves about themselves in order to keep continuity in their identity. The ego is manifested in the conscious sphere via what Jung called the persona, which is the external efforts of appearance, which the individual actively shows to the world. This persona, however, is often disjointed from the individual's genuine self, since it portrays the character that one thinks or wants to be according to what the ego deems is appropriate to a specific society and role, and not what is true to who the individual actually is. In order to execute and keep this right look and self-esteem, the ego filters countless components of human experience and selfhood either into or away from the conscious plane. What it filters away and limits, it represses and sends down into the unconscious world. One of Jung's most original and fundamental insights that differentiates him most significantly from other psychologists is how, from here, he separated the unconscious into two distinct structures, the personal unconscious and the community unconscious. The personal unconscious fits similarly into the theories already defined and presented by Freud and others of the period. In this, once the ego represses and disregards undesired aspects of experience and selfhood, these aspects are stored and concealed here, just outside normal consciousness. They nonetheless, however, continue to actively affect and interact back and forth with awareness. The collective unconscious, however, differentiates from the personal unconscious and other prior conceptions of the psyche in that, according to Jung, it contains and facilitates universal elements that are inherited through the sum total of human history, similar in some sense to how biological evolution works. Man has gained consciousness slowly and laboriously, in a process that took unfathomable years to achieve the civilized state. And this evolution is far from complete, for large sections of the human mind are still hidden in darkness, stated Jung, as a result of each generation of human offspring effectively imitating the actions of the previous generation. To at least some degree, an unbroken chain of psychological imitation is built, going all the way back to the beginning of human history. Thus, a form of reservoir of psychological predispositions, structures, and memories that have been formed by this chain is automatically inherited by each human being. Jung found this to be empirically demonstrable in both his own professional psychiatric practice, finding recurring similarities in the unconscious of a vast number of his patients, as well as his historical and mythological research, in which he noticed that similar motifs, symbols, and themes that appeared in his patients' unconscious also were prevalent and consistent across art, myths, and literature within different cultures of different times even, though these cultures often never even encountered one another. In Jung's view, these comparable motifs, symbols, and themes were manifestations of the various psychological systems consistent across humanity, which he dubbed archetypes. These archetypes, in Jung's theory of the psyche, basically constitute the basis of the individual's personality by predisposing distinct cognitive tendencies. Within the united unconscious, Jung would refer to all the repressed, denied, and unknown stuff which the ego does not desire to engage with as the shadow. Lastly, sort of nested within the shadow, is what Jung divided down into the animus and anima, which specifically allude to the suppressed feminine elements in a man, anima, and the suppressed masculine qualities in a female, animus. According to Jung, all the aforementioned structures of the psyche work together in active circulation to ultimately form what is at the center, the self-integrated, authentic totality of the unconscious and conscious. This self is who the individual genuinely is, what they actually desire, what they actually like, what they actually are capable of, and so on. Simply put, getting the ego and a high degree of the persona as close to this as conceivable is the objective of individuation and eventually a fulfilling existence. Whether it's through methods like therapy, introspection, personal development toward authenticity, or some combination, ultimately, for Jung, it is the responsibility of the individual to identify and strive toward this. In all conditions, this sort of self-realization demands an effort of radical self-acceptance. And radical self-acceptance requires an effort of radical self-honesty. In order to actively move deeper into the psyche, each opportunity one takes to examine a personal feeling, thought, or action, they must attempt to do so by accepting the complete and often undesirable potentiality of what it truly indicates about themselves, that they are not always who they think or hope they are. Each of these capitalized possibilities, personal or professional, is like a little step down the steps into the unconscious. As one goes further down, however, as they confront these deeper and darker elements of their being hidden in the basement, they must, in Jungian language, try to integrate their shadow, the breadth of their potential faults and wickedness, as opposed to hurry back up the stairs in denial. One's shadow does not dissipate by glancing away from it. In the same way, one cannot literally dodge the light-casted shadow of their body by outrunning it. There is no motion or evasive approach that isolates the individual from their psychological shadow. The risk, rather, is in the desire to do so, the ignorance and denial of it. Good does not become better by being exaggerated, but worse, and a small evil becomes a big one through being disregarded and repressed. The shadow is very much a part of human nature, and it is only at night that no shadows exist, wrote Jung. Awareness of one's dark side allows one to more appropriately manage and recognize it when it sneaks up the stairs uninvited. One must know about a problem to be able to repair it, and it is an act of healing to admit that one is unwell. Although self-acceptance and authenticity is perhaps basic and apparent enough sounding, the challenge of genuinely working toward radical self-acceptance and individuation is, of course, far from simple and clear. In the absolute sense, it is virtually probable impossible. In the above-average sense, it is still perhaps life's greatest and most hard task. To truly and honestly accept your downfalls, weaknesses, potential evils, and shameful or unpopular interests and qualities. To admit what you see fear or hate in others is, and could be inside of you, to admit to yourself that are not and will never be completely who you think and want to be. That you are not as good as you had hoped, and to confront what your mind has worked a lifetime to keep from itself is a task that literally shakes the very core of the psyche. However, it is possibly proportionally vital for a joyful and fulfilling life. Ultimately, Jung's work provides insights, theories, and methods to help the individual move through this process toward not only potentially gaining access to fixing the bugs in their navigation system, but also in some sense access to the controls where now they can better input the destination coordinates according to where they actually can and want to go.